The following video is a brief overview of the Western Region Operations Level Implementation Plan. This will provide a little bit of background on what operations levels mean and also how it's anticipated they could be used to benefit the local offices, the WFOs, the RFCs throughout Western Region. The concept behind the operations level or setting operations level in each office is allowing us as the Weather Service to actually be consumers of our own information. So typically we reach out to our customers and provide forecast out through 7 days so that they can make decisions and plan their resource allocations and uses. We would like to do the same in our offices, so anticipating the big workload days, making sure that we have adequate staffing, that we have prioritized our workload appropriately, both in and outside of the office. This figure displays kind of the typical evolution of maybe a forecast cycle. And so the black vertical line there represents the day of maybe a major weather event, possibly a winter storm or a heavy rain event. And what we see in most offices is that even leading up to the weather event itself, the workload associated with highlights, social media, webinars, issuing emails, contacting customers, those types of things actually have potentially more workload ahead of the actual weather event itself. So how do we identify those days to make sure that we're adequately prepared, have the resources we need within the office to accomplish the functions to provide forecast warnings and decision-making services to our customers? This is where the implementation or the operations levels come in. Part of what is in the operations levels for Western Region are 4 colors chosen for levels. Trying to keep this very simple, but yet provide some information so that it can quickly be looked at and ascertained as to the workload or resources a WFO is using for a particular event. So the green level is identified as a fair weather operations, really no hazard or impacts expected during that time period that is labeled with an operation level of green. Yellow would indicate some initial or possibly low impact for IDSS services. Maybe we're issuing outlooks, advisories, or even some warnings in some cases, but the scope and the focus and the extent of those is fairly minimal, maybe done with the existing routine staffing for particular shifts or various shifts, but possibly being extended to include an additional staff member or two to assist in this effort. So there could be quite a few events that are labeled yellow in advance of those events as far as a resource allocation and workload impact. Orange is designed for a more moderate high IDSS activity, so maybe there's multiple high impact events, warnings, advisories, those sorts of things. Maybe it's a severe weather event. Maybe the scope of the event is a little bit more broad, or the aerial extent of the event is broader, and certainly in this case there would at least be some additional staff needed to support this event over and above the routine staffing for those operational shifts, but it could extend up to 2 or 3 or more bodies. The red level is designed to be reserved for those extreme high impact events. So those events, it's almost like an all hands on deck type of event. Probably most WFOs may see a couple of these a year. I would say that it's probably a rare event. You may go some years and not have a red event. So these are really reserved for those time periods when everyone in the office is pretty well engaged in some form or fashion with supporting the event. And again, it's anticipated that the red day could be a day or two even prior to the actual weather event that's creating the hazard, and may extend through the event as well, depending on the nature of that. The last little item there in the white box is identified as a post-event support. So a lot of times in our offices after an event, there's a fair amount of activity that happens to evaluate the event, to assess how well the event was handled, lessons learned, reaching out to customers to figure out if our products and services met their needs. So we'll identify those with a little checkbox that will be marked with a P for post-mortem or post-event support. So to put this in a little bit more of a visual sense, this is a cartoon graphic that may show the evolution of an event for a particular office. So let's say that we maybe had a high impact event on day 8. Maybe it was a atmospheric river hitting the West Coast, and we anticipated that that was going to create a lot of flash flooding and that we would need everybody to be involved in this particular event on day 8. Notice how the ramp up in effort, even on the green days, is the level of IDSS maybe starts off very, very minimally at day 1, and by day 2, maybe a little bit more effort, but not quite to the yellow level. Certainly we're maybe messaging some and providing some extra information. By day 5, now maybe the workload has accelerated so much that now we do need to incorporate a few more folks into the process, or maybe those that are working routinely really don't have time for other diversions, not a time where they can get training done or work on other focal point activities or projects, but pretty well are consumed by taking care of the event that's approaching on, again, that day 8. You can see by day 6 and day 7 the level of IDSS effort has increased, so maybe it's producing more briefings for customers, emails, webinars, additional products, additional social media posts via Facebook, Twitter, those sorts of things. And then at day 9 and 10, it's anticipated that this event will come rapidly to a close. And this may be a little idealistic. Another way to explain this is maybe the event is actually on day 7, and day 8 is anticipated to be a cleanup day from a flooding. So maybe the workload or the weather event itself is on day 7, but the workload for the WFO or the RFC maybe is on that day 8, where maybe there's disaster cleanup or people exposed to the elements out there for disaster recovery, that maybe they're relying on the WFO for a lot of extra information that would require them to be at a red level. So this is just a couple of examples of how this concept might look in real life. So to the tool that will be used by the region and all the offices within the Western region, this first display is one that's designed to provide a quick and dirty overview of the entire Western region and the offices and what their state may be as far as operational level. For example, you can see some areas that have starting off with some oranges in the first couple periods, most likely associated with winter weather, and then they ramp down to some yellow days where maybe they're anticipating some winter weather, but maybe not as much as impactful for the workload of the office and the support that the office is doing as those in day 1 and 2 in this case, or down here at day 2 and 3. So this is designed to be really helpful for those working at the Western Region headquarters or the Regional Operations Center to quickly get an assessment each day, each morning most likely, as to where the hot spots around the region are and allow them to kind of look for opportunities to provide some additional support or offer assistance if needed. Drilling down to the WFO level, we can see that by clicking on the particular WFO, you can actually get a little bit more information on this regional view by saying that, okay, we see that Thursday through the period, we're seeing that winter weather is really a concern, but Friday and Saturday, the winter weather concern is a little bit more elevated. Maybe the winter event is actually, in this particular case, starting late Thursday and going into the weekend, but the primary periods that the workload's anticipated to be a little heavier is actually on Friday, maybe providing extra briefings or emails to customers as they head home for the weekend or try to make decisions heading into the weekend. And then Saturday, maybe taking care of information as the event winds down and producing a few more event summaries and Facebook posts and Twitter posts and information on the web page. So this can be helpful at the regional level just to see a broad idea of what that hazard that is causing these increased levels could be. It also provides an opportunity to look around at neighboring offices and see what their periods of concern might be, and maybe opportunities for offices to work together to collaborate on joint weather stories, or maybe pick up a little workload from another WFO to help them out and ease their burden if that opportunity exists. By clicking on the actual office name, we then get a listing of what specific actions the WFO might be considering. So in this particular example, we can see that on Thursday the office has identified a yellow operational level. Again, the weather event for this is more into Friday into Saturday, but they've identified Thursday as a yellow day. Basically a little bit more DSS activities, more products and email out to their spotters, getting their web page ready to add additional headlines as the event unfolds Thursday night and into Friday, and maybe doing some extra things on the web page later in the period. Friday, the office has identified that they've already made arrangements for a supernumerary shift to come in a little bit later on Friday and stay a little bit later in the day on Friday to assist with getting information out for the evening media. Also identified that by tomorrow midday, try to get some preliminary snowfall amounts out to the media, and maybe make a few phone calls to do that. So a lot of these things are things that are conversations that have been happening in offices for a long time, but this gives a consistent tool to capture some of those discussions or those actions or a strategy for how to deal with an event, particularly in advance, so that shift to shift there's some continuity, and then even looking longer term, if somebody comes back from being off of leave, they have an opportunity to plug into an event and realize the benefit of work that's been done before they got into the office, as far as what the plan is, what the strategy, how we're going to approach this, and also to make sure that they have the resources, both staffing, time, and other things in place to be successful. As we look farther down, we can see that in the next week they identified winter weather as still a concern, but they put it in the green category. I really don't anticipate any highlights, but there's still some things to at least be aware of out there, as far as maybe some light snow or some low impact types of things that are on the horizon there. To make changes to this interface is pretty simple. Clicking on the edit button provides a screen that a couple of things that can get chosen. First, the hazard box there is a way to quickly identify out of a few broad categories what the hazard might be. In this case, I'm going to change these to nothing for Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we move over and we can go through these menus and pick the choice that's most appropriate. That's a way just to indicate really quickly what the hazard is that the office is handling at that time, or that's receiving the IDSS activities. We also have a drop down here to actually choose the level, whether it's a green, a yellow, orange, or red. And quite frankly, there might be a lot of concern out there about what's the most appropriate level. And this tool is really designed to facilitate communication within the office amongst those that are working and discussing this at an office-wide weather briefing or situational awareness discussion or something like that happens within the office, to come to a consensus agreement about what level of IDSS needs to be happening in advance of particular weather or water or man-made events that our offices may be involved with. So there really isn't a wrong answer here other than just ignoring this tool. These transitions and what constitutes a yellow, orange, and red, those should be the result of conversations that happen in each office daily. Finally, the box down here, this is a free text box, so you can type as much as you'd like. It captures this information. The concept here would be, this is where the operational staff would identify particular and specific items that either need to be contemplated or potential plans that are put in place, again, well ahead of time of weather events that are multiple days out. So in this case, we've already identified that somebody on Friday will be shifting their hours to come in a little bit later and stay a little later. Somebody else has already identified that they'll be in on Saturday to assist with the weather event, an extra set of hands to help out. So this may be a case where the potential for overtime or callbacks to support an event may be identified as well. So it allows those that are working to know that there is a plan, that discussion has happened, and should make us better prepared to handle these high impact events or just even moderate events with impact-based decision support services. The other residual effect from this and benefit for the office is maybe there's opportunity to identify green days. And so you see, as an example, we'd look here at Boise, we click on that and see, okay, we have 7 days worth of green days. Those might be opportunities for us to conduct some readiness activities, maybe some training within the office, some focal point work, maybe some project work, maybe some cooperative observer work. Maybe we can send somebody to the office to get some work done in a variety of different program areas. Maybe the electronics technicians need to take a radar on a day, and they could look at that and say, well, those are days that it looks like it's low impact. Maybe those are days I can target for getting work done outside or working on equipment that won't be critical to operations. So the residual benefit is looking at these green day opportunities as a planning tool to know when you may have time in your office to get some extra activities done that would prepare us for those yellow, orange, or red days. So really it's a pretty simple tool. A lot of these discussions will require some discussion in each office, and the trigger values will be different in each office as well. So there are no black and white answers when it comes to what will work for each office. The bottom line is each office will have to kind of work through that and try some of those things through discussion. This is not designed to be a one person makes the decision in isolation on setting the levels and what activities. It's meant to be a team effort, primarily hosted probably by the shift leader or those working, but again, a consensus building activity to have this discussion of how are we situated, how are we staged for this particular event, and what sorts of things should we be thinking of and planning for as it approaches. Hopefully that explains in a fairly brief way of what the operations levels are, how to use them, and how to use this tool to get started within your offices.